Okay, it looks like we are live and we're ready to roll.
All right.
Hi, thank you so much for coming today to visit us. Okay, that was just dumb. No one came to this. Here we
They
go.
might.
We'll try that again. Oh, no, wait. And wait, before I do this, Rachel, where are you? You're in North Africa?
I'm living in Paris, France, but I am at the moment in Tunisia, North Africa. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just, because you're in Tunisia, I'll say live with us today from Tunisia, or joining us today, because we won't be pushing this out live, actually. Okay. Hi, welcome to today's episode of 31 Days of Strength and Dignity. I'm Dawn Mansky with Made for Freedom, and excited to bring to you stories about strength and dignity that people and organizations around the world are helping. No, sorry, that wasn't very good. Okay, Moses, wipe that. Moses is my editor. Hi, Dawn Mansky with Made for Freedom, and thank you for tuning in today with the 31 Days of Strength and Dignity. We are looking at organizations and individuals around the world that are instilling strength and dignity in the lives of those who desperately need it. Today, we have Rachel Williams Measure. No. What is it? Say it again.
Measuring.
Measuring?
Measuring.
Measuring. Hi, thank you for joining us today in 31 Days of Strength and Dignity. I'm Dawn Mansky with Made for Freedom, and today we are talking to Rachel Williams Measury. She's joining us today from Tanzania. Yes, is that correct?
Yes, Tunisia. Uh-huh.
Tunisia.
Or Tunisia. The English say Tunisia, Americans say Tunisia.
Okay, Tunisia. Okay, we're starting again. Tunisia, Measury. Hi, thank you so much for joining. Do what?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What'd you say?
I said, would Tunis be better? Tunis, Tunisia? I don't know if that helps.
Tunisia, Measury. Hi, thanks for joining us today in 31 Days of Strength and Dignity. I'm Dawn Mansky with Made for Freedom, and we are talking with people and representing individuals and organizations around the world that are providing strength and dignity for those who most desperately need it. Today, we are talking to Rachel Williams Measury. She's in Tunisia and joining us so that she can share with us some about what she's doing in the fight against human trafficking. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, to get started, first tell us what it is you do and why you have chosen to give your time and energy to that.
Well, about 2 years ago, I started a magazine called Grace as Justice Magazine, and it came out of me not being able to find a magazine about human trafficking and slavery. And I felt that there needed to be some sort of, I don't know, a depot, if you will, where a bunch of organizations could get together. They could see what one another is doing and get ideas from one another. And basically, we would all be in this together to stop human trafficking. And the reason that I chose to do a magazine as opposed to doing something else was because at the time I was living in Tunisia full-time, if you will, and I couldn't find a local organization that I could volunteer with, whether it was there really wasn't one in Tunisia, and I don't speak the local language either. And I had so much work to do at the time, and I was kind of homebound, if you will. So I was asking myself, what is it that I can do? What is it that I'm good with? And I decided, well, I'm good with writing. So I decided to go ahead and put my writing to use. And that's when I went online to see if there was a magazine, didn't see one, didn't find one, and said, well, someone needs to start one. And that's kind of the story behind Grace as Justice. And I think if I had known everything I was going to be getting into, I might have thought twice. But it was worth it. It's worth every minute of it.
Good, good. Yeah. What a great example of not being able to find some way to plug in and figuring out a way to plug in.
Right.
That's awesome. What would you say are what you've discovered in talking to people, and as you're talking about your magazine, what are the greatest misconceptions that you have found people have about trafficking?
I think the number one greatest misconception is it doesn't happen here. And,
Mm-hmm.
it does happen in the United States. In fact, industrialized countries are some of the largest trafficking countries in the world. Um, but most people in industrialized countries, whether it's Europe, whether it's the United States, Dubai, Australia, most of them don't even think it happens there. This is one of the greatest scams of the human traffickers, is that they get people to believe, well, it doesn't happen. This is free choice. We have all this liberty. And people just don't realize that a few years ago, I was looking at a statistic, and in the United States, I was seeing statistics of 250,000 American children trafficked every year within the United States itself. And I know that there are some more conservative estimates, there are some even larger estimates, but that number is just astronomical. And it shows us that we have a huge problem, not just with people being trafficked into our country, whether it's from Mexico, whether it's from Eastern Europe, but also people who are Americans, who are born and raised in the United States, and they're being trafficked within our own borders and sometimes outside of them. And I think that this misconception is one of the greatest problems that we have, because people are always saying, it's over there, it's over there. And so they feel like, they don't really have to do anything because it's not in my backyard.
Right, right.
I think another huge problem is the issue of choice. A lot of people will look at sex workers, especially in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
in other industrialized countries where there are a lot of freedoms, there are a lot of liberties, there are a lot of things that protect people. And they look at these people and they say, well, it's her choice. I mean, there she is. She looks like she's 20, and, she's made a decision to go into this type of lifestyle. And they don't understand that the average age of a trafficking victim in the United States is 12. And if you have a daughter or a niece, or, even if you have probably half a brain, you understand that a 12-year-old cannot make that kind of decision for herself. That's not possible. And even if she could, you still couldn't expect someone like that to be able to get out of that situation. It's not her choice. In the United States, many, many, many of the children who are trafficked come from disadvantaged backgrounds. But because trafficking is gaining such a stronghold, and it's not being hindered almost at all, really, then what's happening is they're getting more and more bold, and they're beginning to encroach more and more on middle class. And it's just a matter of time. And even overseas, of course, it's also, you have older women who, many of them do decide to go in, or I say older women, I should say older girls, people who are considered no longer minors. They decide to go into trafficking, a small portion, and thinking that, this is the only option that they have. That's not a choice either. When a woman's presented with, you can sell your body or your child can starve to death, that's not an option. That is not a choice. So in many, many countries, women don't even have jobs, and they're relegated to nothing, basically, just to feed off scraps. So if a man doesn't take care of them, they're in a precarious situation. So those are two. And I think the third one is that people often think, again, especially in the United States, you can leave whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you consider that it's a huge, huge problem. And if we just take the United States, first of all, human trafficking and prostitution is no longer, well, prostitution, I should say, and sex work is no longer considered something that one person can do for herself and get in and get out of it. I recently read a book by Matthew Friedman with the Mekong Club, and it's called Where Were You? And in that book, he does interview a madam in India who said that 20, 30 years ago, yes, a woman could do that. She could put herself in this situation because she had no other option, and then she could leave when she wanted to. That's no longer the case. Everything is mafia controlled.
Mm.
So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is if your average age is 12, and a 12-year-old finds herself within minutes, normally, in the hands of a pimp, who most pimps have a doctorate in child psychology, practically. They're brilliant in that area. And they convince this child, normally from a broken home, that the child is loved, this is their home, that type of thing. That becomes a type of love that child's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And is a perverted love, but it's the only one perhaps they know. And in addition to that, if you think about a 13-year-old, and then you see this woman, we'll say at 18, 5 years later, or 6 years later if she's 12, you have to put it in your mind that this woman now has never rented an apartment, probably doesn't have a social security number, has never been to school or never finished school, not even middle school, has no idea about anything in the world. And to say she can leave, that's just, you're kidding yourself if you think that. So I think those are the primary misconceptions that I see in the US and in many industrialized nations. It doesn't happen here. It's her choice, and she can get out of it if she wants.
Right. Right. Oh, that's quite a few. That's good though. It's good information. And I think there are a lot of different things that people aren't aware of, that they don't realize is underneath that, all of it.
Well, that, and it does bleed into a lack of responsibility on the part of the person who could otherwise help. Because if people are overwhelmed, or people think that it's somebody else's responsibility, they're not going to give the funds and the power to end it, which the funds and the power have to come out of industrialized nations if we want to see a change in this area.
Right. Good point. So share with me a story of strength and dignity that you have seen instilled in a woman that has been rescued.
I have not had the pleasure of meeting a woman that's in a situation of restoration at present. I've not worked with women who have been trafficked. I have been able to speak with some women who were trafficked many, many years ago. And the one thing that I notice with these women, there is a resounding theme. For each one of them, it was they came to an understanding, once they came to an understanding of who they were in Christ, in their particular religious belief, they were restored. They began the process of restoration. It wasn't instantaneous, but that understanding their identity as a child of a king, if you will, as a child of someone who loved them passionately. That love just was so massive that it began a restoration process. And it instilled not only a strength, but also a dignity. And they just are quiet powerhouses. And I don't mean quiet like they're silent and timid. On the contrary, they're very bold, but there is a definite dignity within them that gives this power, so that when they reach out to people, they are convincing. When they reach out to women in this industry, they are living proof that you can come through. There is hope. You can be restored, and from what they're saying, restored 120% and come out better than you went in as. So there is, and that's one of the major things that Grace's Justice focuses on, is hope. If there's no hope, then forget it. But if there's hope and there's so much of it, then we need to be doing everything we can to get these people out, get them restored, and make them an army to end this atrocity.
Nice. Very nice. Good. So to wrap up, if you were to give one action item for people who want to be part of the fight against human trafficking, what would that be?
I would just say that we need people in every area of society to participate in ending this. This is not something, in many societies, particularly in industrialized countries, we like things to be put in boxes. It helps us to organize everything. We organize our lives. This is what the government does. This is what I do. This is what my mom does. This is what the cat does. And there is a great organizational scale here, but the reality is life is not organized. Life is messy. It overlaps everything. We need people in politics. We need people in government. We need people in the school systems. We need mothers who are staying home. We need children. We need everybody. And I would just say, whatever it is, whatever talent it is, you've been given a talent, and that talent serves a purpose. You may not have to spend your entire life working to end human trafficking. That might be one thing that you do. You might volunteer a certain amount of time. However, if you can just volunteer a little bit of time, if you can, just use your own buying power even to purchase the right goods, things like that, you're sending a message. And I would just tell people, what is it that you can do and do well? You want to do this. Let's say that you're in business. Make sure your business is buying fair trade. Make sure your business is helping others who are coming out of trafficking, something along those lines. If you are somebody who wants to volunteer, call the local agency. You do not have to reinvent the wheel, but just do whatever it is in your hand, whatever your talent is, and we can definitely end this.
Mm. Good, good. Well, thank you very much, Rachel, for those thoughts and for what you're doing with Grace as Justice and helping people better understand what's going on in this realm. But I hope things go well in Tunisia, and thank you again for being here. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Strength and Dignity. We hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.